Yeah, that was an autocorrect. I'm going to leave it.
So do you like MI10, like CIA Oh no, sorry, it's MI5. MI5 is like CIA. Oh, yeah. Independent black.
All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. Awesome. Okay, how do we do on this? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, right. Do we have to use our notes? Yeah, okay. Right, that's pretty normal. We just learned it yesterday, yeah? So, when you try to look at your notes, just try to do like those quick little looks, check out the shape, go back, try it. So let's go over this. So first thing I need to do when I'm creating a class is write what? Class, right? That's pretty good. And then we got the name of the class.
Animal.
This should be in what type of case? Proud camel case, right? This should be in proud camel case, right? I know the words are like, yeah, we know it's capital, but we want to learn the vocabulary, right? Because we want to go to the interview and sound like we also know what we're talking about. Right? Okay, then we write our curly braces. First thing inside of the class is what? Constructor. This is where we're going to take in those arguments to initialize the instance of our class, yeah? So we said for this one we're going to pass in name and agent. And what are we doing here? Okay, right, we're going to say this dot name. It's assigned to the value of name. And this dot agent is equal to agent. Okay. Any questions on this so far? So can anybody tell me what this is referring to? Well? Sort of. That's not exactly the key. The name is going to be a key, and the agent is going to be the key. But what is this? Isaiah? Yeah, that's right. So it's the instance of the class. That's what this keyword is. It's what everything is on, this specific instance. Okay, so then we were asked to write a couple functions. So we're going to say our first one was eat, sleep. Right, we just write it like that inside of our class. Sleep, parentheses, and then the curly braces. And in here we'll just return I. And let's give them their name. We can access things from the instance. I.name am sleeping. Other argument we wanted was eat. Same syntax. Word eat, parentheses, and curly braces. But this one we said we're going to take an argument. So I should pass something in. Maybe food. And then we can return, we'll just say like this, dot name is eating food. Questions on that? All right, so now we have to, yeah, Shia? I did right here.
No, I mean like food equals to.
So when something comes in as that's if I wanted to have a default argument. The default argument is what will automatically become the argument if the user fails to pass in an argument. But our user is going to know that it needs to take food, so we don't have to worry about that.
Like, okay, so for example, in yesterday's example, when we did the activity status, like when we call, we have to put in a number. When we did console log.
Yeah, we haven't called it. This is just us writing the function.
Oh, okay.
Right? This is just us setting it up. So food represents a variable that we will eventually pass in.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and call it and test our code. So first thing we're going to do is let's create Betty. We don't know what animal Betty is. Doesn't matter, I guess, in this instance. So we'll say new animal, and we'll pass in Betty, and Betty can be a secret agent. Secret agent. Sorry?
Secret Agent Baker.
Secret agent Baker. I don't know what that is, but okay.
That's my secret.
That's what I'm not. I'm not nearly hip enough. Okay, so we're gonna console log Betty and see what's going on with Betty. I'm just gonna make this a lowercase b. Which means I should fix this. All right, variable should be lowercase. All right, so. So now we have to debug. Unexpected. That weird import thing or something is at the top. I have no idea why that keeps happening. But there we go. And we'll try again. And we get our animal, instance of our animal, named Betty, agent, secret agent Baker. What's some interesting things to know? I know it's really broad, right? So something that might be interesting to note is that we don't see the sleep method in there. We don't see the eat method in there. We only see the direct attributes that were created in the constructor. Okay, that is always going to be the case. Whatever we put into the constructor is what will be in the instance. The methods outside of the constructor are things that are on the class. So what actually happens is when we call those methods, the first thing that happens is JavaScript checks to see if there's a method in the instance. If there isn't, it goes up to the class. That's called like going up the prototype chain. So once it goes up to the class, then it will see that method. This is true for everything. So what is above animal? Like, what does animal inherit from? Do we know? Well, okay. What happens if I do type of Betty? What do we get? Okay, so what do you think's above the animal class? Object, right? Object is like the president of all the classes. It's the top of the chain. And so what does that mean? Well, this isn't super important at the moment, but you should be able to see that if I say like .toString and I run it, we get this object. It doesn't throw an error. Okay? So toString isn't in our instance, nor is it in our animal class, but it is in the object class. So it just keeps going up. That's how things are inheriting things. That's called going up the prototype chain. If that doesn't make total sense right now, that's okay. It's just something to be aware of. So this is how it keeps checking. It will check the instance, it will check the class, and then it will check its parents, so on and so forth, until it reaches all the way up. If it doesn't find it, eventually it will throw an error, say no function exists. Right? Like if I say toString gobble, right? This should certainly throw an error. Because Betty doesn't have gobble, animal doesn't have gobble, object doesn't have gobble, something I just made up, right? So it throws an error. But toString, it does exist because it exists on the object. That's kind of an interesting fact. Okay, so let's try on some of our other methods that exist in animal. So we have eat, and we'll pass something in. We can say cucumber. And it says Betty is eating cucumber. Okay, so we're able to call methods. Pretty good on this? Yeah, Maria. Ah. So how do I get the name? Well, if we look back, well, let's do this again here. So if I just print out Betty, we see this object, which is the instance of our animal, where it has name and agent. So how do we access the key? We could do .name, yeah. So we could say Betty.name, and that's going to go ahead and give us back Betty. Right? This is a property, not a function in this case. I could also have done bracket notation. Ah, interesting. Okay, and we could do bracket name. So she wants to know what happens if we say Betty.name .eat. So she wants to know if we can change the methods. What do we think? Will this work? Not work? Jay?
No, because dot name is not a method, so it's just one of its properties. So you can't say that because it's the way the method is constructed, it's going to use. But when you key into there, the only thing you're going to say is just Betty.
Yeah, okay. So Jay's got it. I'm going to try to say it in a slightly different way. Betty.name, we saw that this evaluated to the string of Betty. Does a string have a .eat method? No. So we won't be able to change it. It will just throw an error. No, it's just going to throw an error. It's just going to break. Because we can't, it's going to say, eat is not a function. Because it's not a function on a string. If we want to chain methods, we'll have to return this, the concept of this, because that returns the instance. But we wouldn't be able to do that for this .name, because the name is just a property. So unless the value was this, but then we wouldn't see Betty. Good question, though. Okay, so we've got this. So there's a slightly new concept that I want to talk about. We're going to still do the inheriting thing that we did from yesterday. But I also want to talk about something called static methods. Static. Okay, so what does that mean? So to show an example, it's like this. So if I have an array, I could say let array. I could make an array like this. I could say, we saw yesterday that I could do new array, right? But I can also do something where I go like this. Array, and I could just say how big of the array I want it to be. So I could say 4. And then I can say dot fill. And then I can say what I want it to fill with. So if I wanted 4 spots in an array filled with the number 5, I could write it like that. You don't really need to have this part of the array memorized. It really won't come up very often in your life, but a little bit here and there. But we get 5, 5, 5, 5, right? But you notice that I was able to call this method on the array class, right? I didn't have to create an instance of an array and call it on that. Do we understand the difference between those two things? An instance method on an array looks like this. So right now we have an array. I would say array dot push, right? This is me calling push on an instance of an array. But here, I'm actually calling dot fill on the array class itself with the capital A, right? That capitalization denotes a class. So how can we do that in our code? Well, with static methods. So if I wanted to have a method for whatever reason that was static for our animal class, I'll say, let's call it birth, because all animals are born or something, right? And this will take in, I'll have this take in a name and an agent. I don't know why I would want to do the same thing, but whatever, right? But before writing the word birth here, I'm going to go back up. So I write it the same as normal, but then I'm going to go ahead up here and write static, like that. The keyword of static before the word. And then in here, I can do anything I want, but for now, I'll just console log called birth and made name. And then I'm going to go ahead and just create, like say, let animal equal new animal. Like I could call the class in here still. Name, agent, and I'm going to go ahead and return animal. This is a factory method. This is a method that's returning an instance of itself so that I could then go ahead and call regular instance methods on this. So let's see how this would work. So we've seen us create Betty this way. So let's create Betty a new way. So instead of saying new animal, we're going to say animal dot birth. And we can go ahead and run node, and we'll say called birth and made Betty, and then our Betty we see is our animal with the same attributes as before. So static is cool if you need to make something so that you can call a method directly on the class. This is a class method, not an instance method. If I go ahead and say Betty.birth here and pass in John and CIA, I think it will throw an error. It throws an error because it says Betty.birth is not a function because it's looking at it for an instance method, and .birth is not an instant method. Birth is a class method, only for the class. Questions on static? Okay, so then write your own static method. Yeah, Shia?
What is static?
It's allowing me to call a method on the class instead of on the instance of a class. So see how I'm calling it on animal, capital A, as a class? And this is returning an instance, so Betty's an instance, so Betty can do .sleep and .eat. But we can't do Betty.birth because it's a class method and Betty is an instance of the class. Just like we can't do animal.eat because that is not a class method, that is an instance method. Right? They're two separate method types. All right, so go ahead and try to write your own static method. You can be creative with it and just have it do something. Yeah, static allows you to create a method on the class.
I'm not sure. Yes. You have a time.
All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. Now, oh, we're still going. I don't think you'll use static very often. So, at least not for a long time if you do. So, I don't really want to get too bogged down in it, but I will write one more now that you've had a chance to write one. So, inside of our class, we'll just write static, the key word. We'll write a new function. I can write explode. This one won't take in any arguments, and this will just return animal exploded. Yeah, it's a dark one, right? It's kind of hidden. One more what? Oh, I don't know it. I gotta check that out. Okay, and then let's go ahead and just check it. So we're gonna say console.log, and we will say animal dot explode invoke, and we can see that it says animal exploded. Yeah, Shia?
Why did you put in 2 arguments in our last stack, and what did they do?
Those ones were just name an agent because I wanted the last one to create a new instance of animal. This one I just want to return a string. Right? I don't want us to think of static as this crazy concept. It's just the way that you can call this method. You can call static methods on the class name itself. That's the only difference. The other ones you can't, and the other ones you can't call the class methods. If you can call it on the class, it's a static method. If you can't, then that's a method for the instance. That's it. Yeah. Yep. I see. It's just like it's like any function ever. We can choose how many arguments we want to pass into it. We can run ifs, conditionals, for loops. We can do anything we want inside. And up in the parameters here, we can say how many things we want to take in, but there's no requirement. No problem. Okay. So let's keep going and hit on. If static isn't like perfect in your mind right now, that's okay. The one thing you need to remember is that it's a method you call on the class. That's it. If you remember that, you're pretty much good to go. That's what will be written in the highlight doc. Okay. So we also talked a little bit about inheritance. So quick reminder on that. I'm going to go ahead and make a cat class. I realized yesterday I did a horse class. That was probably a mistake. So how do we do that? We're going to write class. We say the name of the class we're creating, right? I'm going to say cat. And then we say extends, and we say which class we want to be extending from. So I'm going to say extends. This is going to extend animal. Curly braces. Inside of my class, I also have a constructor. Yeah. Cat should take in a name, an agent, and lives. Right? It has a curly brace. If we want to pass things in, if we want to still be able to use those properties that our parents have, right? We pass those in via super. I'm super glad you remembered. Right? Super. We say name and agent. And then we put our new properties here. So I'll say this dot lives. So lives or lives? Who knows, right? Lives. And that's it, right? Yeah, Rafid?
So the super function is just telling you that you don't have to put this because it was already added. You can't do it.
Yeah, it sends it up to that parent class, right? And the same thing works for our methods. So we had sleep where it said, is M sleeping, right? We can do that here if we want to overwrite that but add to it. So our cat here will have a sleep. And I'm going to go ahead and return I'm going to make a call to our super. I'm going to say sleep. And I'm going to add the string all the time. Because cats are constantly sleeping. All the time and in the sun. Yeah? Let's make it very specific to my cats. Questions on the super? Yeah, Shia.
So you always have to include super when you extend the class.
One more time?
You always have to include super when you're extending the class.
Yeah.
Calling what the instances that you used beforehand.
Yeah. So in our cat class here, we're extending animal. Animal expects certain arguments. So cat will also receive all of those arguments and possibly more. Those arguments that cat shares with the animal class will be passed into the animal class via using super.
Oh, right. Instead of saying this dot name equals this dot. Okay.
Exactly. We're cutting out the redundancy. Farah.
Can super ever just take half of the arguments if it only wanted name and not agent?
If it only wanted to name that agent, we probably shouldn't have extended that class. Is how I'd probably want to think about that. Good question. And we can call our parent functions as well using super outside of constructor. And I'm not even going to talk about static. Yeah, so let's play with it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create a cat named Hachi, or Hachiko, which means a loyal dog in Japanese. And we'll say, I don't know, my wife named that cat, okay? I got to name the first one, she named the second one. But, you know, it is what it is. So we're going to say Hachi's the name. I don't really know how she spells it. Hachi works for the FBI, I'm almost certain. And Hachi's had a pretty easy life, so he's probably got 9 lives. Right? Here I can console log, .log, Hachiko. And when I run our code, we'll see that we have the instance Hachiko. Interesting things to note. I still can use my .sleep method here that we've rewritten, and we'll get the first half of our parent function because we called that. So it says, I, Hachi, am sleeping all the time and in the sun. And we also still have that eat function, even though it doesn't, we can't visually see it in the cat because it belongs to the parent function. So we can say eat, and I will say salmon. Hachi's allergic to chicken. And we can say Hachi is eating salmon. Okay, yeah, Ashia?
If you
Mm-hmm.
if you pass in an argument in the console log, but you did pass it in the function in the class, you're gonna run an error.
You mean like if I did sleep here?
Yeah.
Nope, JavaScript will do anything it can to work. If it doesn't expect an argument and you give it an argument, it just will continue to not use your argument. Won't matter. Java, if it expects an argument and you don't give it an argument, it will just become undefined unless you give it that default argument, which you asked about earlier. Feeling okay on the parent class? Okay, so go ahead and create your own class, not a cat, right? Cat is mine. If you create cat, that is illegal. So choose a different animal and add to one of its functions by calling the super, and go ahead and create a new function for your new animal. also saw a couple of baskets that work on Zoom.
I think I've seen several.
It was pretty wild.
Pretty impressive. Yes.
God is like 10 vocal sounds compared to
You guys. All right. That one's supposed to be up on one and got a lot. You watch.
I started looking for code yesterday. You're like, I'm also looking to well, what would I do at home?
So many favorite famous cats. All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you did something based off of the animal class. Awesome. Okay, how did that go? Yes, no, maybe so? All right, pretty good overall. One thing I walked around and saw a bunch of is I saw a bunch of people who copied the animal class with an S. They did animals. Yeah, right? If this is you, don't be that you. Okay? Your classes should generally be singular because when you're using them, you're calling and creating an instance of the class. Right? You're not creating an instances of the class. You're creating one singular animal, one singular cat at a time. Just like we're not saying new arrays and then coming back with one array, we would say new array, new cat, new animal, right? So just one thing at a time. Cool? Okay, so today was mostly just like a little bit of a review. Tomorrow in class we're going to start to build a game together. Yeah, that's going to be sick. I'm super stoked. But for the rest of the day, we're going to try to cement our understanding of classes via the lab. So Celine has slapped down pairs. So go ahead and get into your pair and start pumping away at that lab. Let's rock and roll. Okay, if this is your first time like pair programming, your pair will fill you in on the process. Yeah? All right, rock and roll.